Everyone, welcome to another exciting edition, a 2025 edition of Words, Images, and Worlds. Who knew in 2025 we would not be riding in flying cars and we wouldn't be cybertronic? I expected these things, but we'll see where 2026 takes us, I suppose. And on this episode, delighted to be talking the future, the present, the past with comics creator, creative voice Marcus Roberts. Marcus, may I call you Marcus?
Yes, you may, and I'm happy to be here. And
I'm happy to
also,
have you.
I want to bounce back to what you're saying as far as the flying cars and stuff. One
Yeah,
thing to remember that in the Jetsons, the people who lived below all of that were homeless, and
yeah.
so there may be someone living up above us, and we just don't know.
That's right. Probably so. Probably so. There's probably a whole traffic system up there somewhere in the air. But yeah, this is true. Well, you're the creator. You're a voice behind a couple of projects that I'll mention: Hedge Hollow, Mississippi Zombies, The Protector, and then I also know that you do work with Second Sight, as well as a Facebook group, Heroes of Color, as well. Is all of this true and accurate?
Yeah, yes, it is. I I have actually been around in the comic book community for a while.
Hmm.
I have just done a lot of stuff behind the scenes, and
Yeah.
the projects that you've mentioned are projects that I've collaborated with friends. Like the Hedge Hollow was a collaboration between Sonica Ellis and I.
Hmm.
I
Hmm.
adapted one of her children's books into a comic.
Love it.
Uh,
Love it.
the Mississippi Zombie is an anthology series where we bring in independent creators, independent artists, writers, and have them tell zombie stories set in Mississippi, but they
Hmm.
get the opportunity to be published mainstream through Caliber Comics.
Yes, yeah. I love the anthology approach. There's something about being behind the scenes, being an editor. It's good to have your face out there, but there's also this real joy in supporting what other people do, I feel like.
Yeah, yeah. It is being a fan first. And I want
Hmm.
to put that out there. I am a comic book fan, comic book reader first. I want to see good material.
Hmm.
And if I can contribute to good material going out there, then I'm happy to do so. I'm happy about doing
Yeah, yeah. What was that spark of fandom for you? When did comics become this special space?
it. Has always been a special space. I am what's referred to as a generational comic book reader.
Nice.
So my father was a comic book reader and semi collector. I had an older brother who also was in the comic books. And then it was just natural. Comic books were around me growing up, and comic books was. I believe that's how I learned how to read was with comic books. But
Nice.
I know you mentioned you were a teacher. You can
Hmm.
appreciate this. When we learn to read, we learn through pictures and words.
Hmm.
The first thing you see is this guy, and then you see these two words, see Dick. And
Yep.
then you see the guy in a motion like this, and you see Dick run. So that our evolution in the reading is essentially what comic books are on a higher level.
Very true. Very true. People try to separate them out, but yeah, there's absolutely that relationship there. We have the visual, the verbal, all the things.
So once I was introduced to that, it just stuck with me. Along with a lot of other people who may not admit it, prefer to have pictures with my words.
Same, same. I appreciate what an artist can bring, and we have artists of the word. We have artists that really create with words only. But then when you think about the time, the effort, the creative energy that goes into pairing words or telling stories with words, that is a whole other ball game as well.
It is, and in doing collaborations with authors, with prose writers, I often mention to them how they write semi-comic scripts because in their writing they have to set scenes
Hmm.
for their readers to know where things are taking place. And the difference is they're writing all of this out, wherein with a comic book, an artist draws all of that out. And now we
Hmm.
just insert the dialogue.
Yeah. Yeah. But going with that question of some things that you keep in mind when you're working with creatives, are there other influences on your approach, other things that you keep in mind as you're working with talent?
Their passion for their project is a
Hmm.
major thing because if they aren't hyped about it, then they're going to get me hyped about it, and they definitely won't get anyone else hyped about it.
Yeah.
So their passion for the project, and then their level of goal orientation.
Hmm. Hmm.
I find that some people aren't really goal oriented. They have excellent ideas, they have excellent approaches, but they aren't actually willing to commit to do the work to get to the end.
Yeah. Yeah.
So if you're on a goal oriented person, then I'm reluctant to work with you because you'll drop out on me in the middle. You'll drop out on me two-thirds of the way
Hmm.
because the goal, which the ultimate thing is the goal is the completion of the project, the book in the hand.
Yeah.
So, if you aren't goal oriented, then yeah, I may be reluctant to work with you. And besides those two things, just you know, the person's attitude.
Hmm.
Because as an editor, I am an old school editor, and by that I mean I'm not just proofreading your stuff. You can get like your mom or your dad or your brother and sister to proofread your stuff.
Hmm.
I'm actually going in and making sure that the the story, the comic flows, that
Yeah.
it has that there are portions that may be unnecessary that need to be removed, and I'm going in to maybe dissect that, keep what we need, take away what needs to be taken away. I'm actually editing. And
Hmm.
a lot of people don't like that level of editing. They prefer a proofreader.
Hmm. Hmm.
So, having the understanding that you're working with someone who is an editor, not a proofreader, is important.
Yeah. Yeah. But that's the commitment to having something put together in the best way, and revision being such an important part of the process at the same time.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, curious about we've talked around collaborations a good bit. Some of those best collaborative experiences that you've had so far in comics.
Well, I actually have had quite a few uh, in putting together the ship title,
Hmm. Hmm. I
getting an
see the shirt.
opportunity, yeah, getting the opportunity to work with guys like Kevin Grievous
Yeah.
and David Walker, uh, working with Brandon Easton and John Jennings, forming these relationships with these guys, Rodney Barnes, Alvin Ball, and of course Bradley Golden, who is my partner at Second Sight.
Hmm.
But even going back further, I am a member of this Facebook group called Independent Creators Connection, ICC. And when the group first formed, when there was only like maybe 400 or 500 of us in the group, we used to do comic books together.
Hmm.
You'd
Hmm.
have a page claimer, and you'd get a book. The book would be 24 pages. You'd have 12 to 16 different people who worked on this book. We would pair artists and writers together. Uh, so from the very beginning, working with people, working with like-minded people who, as I said, are goal-oriented.
Hmm.
Yeah, there's an enjoyment in that. There's a fulfillment in working on a project to its completion.
Yeah.
And that's irrespective of the actual book, holding the
Hmm.
book in. It's working together to get to that point. And there's a fulfillment for me personally in that, in the production part.
Yeah. Yeah.
So uh, I tend to work with people who are like-minded, goal-oriented. Uh, they don't sweat the production. They they can go with the flow because nothing. I have yet to work on a book where everything is just so smooth, so perfect. The idea comes in January and the book is out in March.
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah.
it, it's just hadn't happened for me. So, I need people who will go with the flow, who are able to adjust on the fly. You
Mhm.
know, because ultimately the fulfillment is in the production of the book, getting the thing put together.
Yeah. Yeah. And it is good when things become things.
Yeah.
You, you mentioned a couple of names there, David Walker being amazing, and I love his recent take on Huckleberry Finn as well. And then you mentioned Kevin Greaves. Kevin Greaves, I feel like his voice could kind of like break granite. He has that kind of creative voice as well as just an actual physical presence, and so both of those are among my favorites as well.
Yeah, I did a panel with him a couple of years ago, and it was like as soon as they gave him the mic, and he said, "Hello, how's it going?" And this big echo filled the room. Everybody sat up and like, "Okay, man, who is this? Where did this come from?" Yeah, that voice. But uh, as I mentioned, working with those guys, collaborating with those guys, just it. That was as a comic book fan, because I'm a fan first. That
Mhm.
was a dream come true
Yeah.
because it's like I have books from all of those people.
Mhm.
So as a fan, to say I worked with these guys and I got their books, it was a dream come true.
Yeah. Absolutely. And great to work from the perspective of fandom, appreciate the work, but then to give spaces and pages and be part of that creative process to be making something new with those people. I imagine that is its own level of reward.
It is, and when the book was when Shook was put together, it was put together purposefully, and in that being a horror comic fan, I have seen all kind of horror anthologies. I've read all kind of horror anthologies dating back to Warren Publications and the whole underground comics movement.
Mhm.
So I knew that there did not exist a horror anthology that was written by Black writers. I knew it wasn't there. So I set out to have a book done in that. I set out to have a book that was written completely by Black writers.
Love it. Yeah.
And the thing is,
Amazing work.
the thing that I really enjoyed about the book is the expectation of the book on for some people was that they were going to get this big socio-political thing.
Mhm.
Uh, you know, but it wasn't that. These are true comic book writers, true horror writers writing horror stories.
Yeah.
And that really made the book even more special.
I've sort of kindled an appreciation for horror in the past year that for some reason it's just been kind of a renaissance year for me with that genre. What attracts you to horror in particular?
Well, I've always loved horror since I was a kid, even the horror comic books, but not just that, the old horror movies. It was
Hmm.
just something about the jump scare,
Yeah.
about the unexpected, that I've always appreciated. So, having always been in the horror and seeing how things have moved from the jump scares I mentioned to the more gory, bloody type thing, which while that's horrific, I don't really consider that horror.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, it's horrific. Getting disemboweled, yeah, that's crazy. But horror in the sense of the scare, the
Yeah.
unexpected. That's the horror I grew up on, and that's actually what we seek out when we publish our anthologies, like the Harvest of Horror, which
Yeah.
volume 4 of that is on sale now on Amazon, and it should be hitting comic book stores, I believe, in March.
Hmm. Hmm.
Mississippi Zombie, even with the shook. And those are the type of hard things that we have an appreciation for the old school,
Yeah.
the EC comic style horror, and just not so much bringing it back, but keeping it here.
Hmm. Hmm.
Wherein the other gory, bloody stuff, even though it has its place, it doesn't take over. That's all people see and relate horror as being.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm with you on that. I love the psychology of it. I love a story that's well told. And what's so impressive about horror in comics and thinking about like the EC model is, you have a relatively short story, and a lot of those stories do really interesting things in a very small space.
Yeah. Now,
Yeah.
as a writer, uh, I enjoy writing short stories.
Hmm.
I enjoy writing 8 to 12 pages, maybe 16 pages. Even in some of the comic books that I've done them in a trilogy format or an anthology style, whereas I'm writing the complete story, but I only write 8 or 12 pages at a time and get that done and then maybe move on to the next.
Yeah. I just became a ghost. I'm gonna stop my video and start it back. Usually that works. Hey, it was in celebration of horror. That's what I'm gonna say. But turn it off, turn it back on. There we go. Well, you mentioned projects on the way. I'm curious about what does have your current creative focus.
Well, right now, we're completing the Ship Volume 2, Songs of the Dark Sirens, which we're aiming on getting that out toward the middle of the spring.
Hmm. Hmm.
Uh, we have other projects. I'm working on another volume of Harvest of Horror, which would be Volume 5. We're working on Volume 5 of Mississippi Zombie.
Nice.
Yeah, anthologies are that that's really where a lot of my focus is on putting together anthologies because I have to go through a lot of stories. Uh, and to me, and I say this and I mean this when I say this, there's no such thing as a bad story,
Mm.
whether it be art or writing, because I've put together enough anthologies to know people prefer different things. Some stories that I knew or felt may have been weak in the anthology end up being the best reviewed stories, and other stories where I'm thinking, this guy, man, his writing is on point, this artwork is stellar, and people don't say anything about it. You don't hear a peep about that story. So
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah, and I know people's taste is subjective, so understanding that when I put a when I put an anthology together, you're gonna get some of everything.
Hmm.
So it may not rank a 5 out of 5 stars, but it's going to be so much in there until you can't give it a bad score because you know, I like something I like things like I just mentioned. I like the jump scares, but
Hmm.
there are people who like the gory stuff. So you get a bit of both of that. I like the old school warm publications, the EC style comics, but there are people who prefer, the what James Tinian is doing, and something's killing the children.
Hmm. Hmm.
Or like with my partner Bradley. Bradley is one of these new school horror guys, so he doesn't mind chopping up a body or two.
Yeah, yeah. It's good to have all those perspectives and yeah, collaboration and multiple tastes because it's pleasing a lot of people and a lot of readers.
Yeah,
Yeah.
which is what we aim to do. Ultimately, we are doing it for the fans because we are fans ourselves. So, and doing it for the fans, we aren't trying to hit one demographic specifically or anything of that nature. We are trying to reach as many fans as possible and give them a selection of not just the stories that we find enjoyable, but different writers, different artists, people that they may have never heard of, that they may never see anywhere except for in one of these books. And the hope is that person can gain a following.
Yeah. Well, if I'm a listener out there and I want to follow, where would be some places that I can do that? Where can I find out more about your work and connect with the books and find some of these things?
The easiest thing to do is Google me, Marcus H. Roberts,
Hmm.
and all of this stuff will come up. Books, interviews, the stuff that I did when I worked with the World of Black Heroes, articles I've written, that type of thing.
Awesome. Well, any other spaces or anything that you'd like to mention before we close out our talk today?
Uh, the last thing that I would like to mention, is about the big crossover that I was a part of this past summer, the
Hmm.
Epiphany. Uh, and we talk about collaboration. This was one of the biggest collaborative events that I've ever done. Over 72 characters, over 40 publishers, all coming together to work on one project, and then getting to work with some of those same people that I worked with on Shook, plus other guys like Brandon Thomas and got Dennis Cowan who did a cover. I mean, this project is a huge and ambitious project, and I encourage all the listeners to check this book out, which should be coming in stores. I believe our timetable says in the spring as well.
Hmm.
But yeah, that was a real fulfilling thing to do, working on that project, because in the spirit of Shook, we brought together over, as I said, 40 Black publishers, over 70 Black characters, all in this, I think it's a 190-page graphic novel.
Yeah, that's a project that I've backed. I'm looking forward to seeing all of that as it comes together and getting a copy sometime in the next few months.
Yep. Well, besides having a character in it, I will be writing the afterward for it, and I was part of I am part of the editorial staff, specifically with planning and strategy.
Nice. Nice. Well, certainly glad to give some love to that project as well. And Marcus, it's been great talking with you. I'm glad to have you back here anytime to talk about projects and creating.
Well, whenever you have me back, I'll be ready.
All right. Sounds great. Sounds great. Thank you so much.